I'm Justin Snyder.
And I'm Stephanie Greenwood Snyder.
We're just an average, everyday couple.
But over the years, we've seen the incredible importance of building community together.
We'll be talking with friends and experts about their stories and experiences to help us learn and grow.
We don't want to just survive through life.
We want to intentionally thrive.
This is The Intentional Thriver.
Welcome back to the Intentional Thriver podcast, the podcast where we ask the question, am I surviving or am I thriving? Today, we have a guest with us. She goes by many names, many aliases, some of which she has never shared from her Alabama moonshine running days, but she's known as Jessica to some, Jessica Clark, Jessica Bowers, Bowser. The Bowers. Anyway,
Yes.
Welcome, please, Jessica Clark to the podcast. Jessica, how are you doing?
I am thriving right now.
Well, phenomenal.
Impressive.
Kids are in bed. No, I'm doing great.
Teach us your ways.
Oh my goodness, yes. Like, congrats on your new renovations and such. Your
Thank you.
New
House.
kitchen looks immaculate.
Immaculate. Yes.
Gorgeous.
We're getting there, still need some more cabinets, some doors, some flooring. That would be great,
Yeah.
Semantics.
And I'll take the concrete over shag carpet.
Ooh.
So,
it was shag
Yeah.
carpet before. Right on.
oh yeah.
High
Yeah.
quality.
Do you
in
think
Decatur.
shag carpet is ever going to make like a resurgence?
It has in area rugs, but not,
I
not
guess.
wall to wall. I don't know. We'll see. Crazier
Well,
things
I don't know
happened.
if 90s,
The 90s
like
are
clothing
back.
and stuff are back.
Ouch.
Right.
I
It's
thought
only
that
a matter
decade
of
went to
time.
die. Like it.
No.
There's certain things that
Now
shouldn't.
all the Gen Z thinks it's cute to have little
Yeah.
things in your hair.
Well,
and-
I guess yeah. If
triggering.
this year's halftime show taught us nothing, it's that the 90s are back and they are back strong.
How do
oh,
you
yeah.
know that? You don't know
That's
anything
what
about
I've
the
heard.
90s.
That's what I heard. Something
We didn't
about-
actually grow up in
something
the
about-
90s.
Exactly. We grew up like in the 50s, but in the anyway.
Yes.
Anywho, so well, we always start off the podcast by saying something kind about our guests. Ooh, I had to,
Ooh,
I had to
you
dig
had to
deep
think
on this
hard
one.
about that one.
No.
No, a couple things that stand out to Jessica for those who don't know the Bowser. Jessica is one of the most like multi-talented, diversified people I know. Like you
For
give
sure.
Jessica a flute and she will toot it
Win
very,
awards.
very well.
Yeah.
You can also give this gal a monkey wrench and throw her under a car. And I mean,
With a
maybe
monkey
not
wrench?
throw. Some kind of
Probably not.
automobile-esque
Yeah. Like,
tool. Yes,
incredible.
but Jessica is also a very talented mechanic.
Literally the
as
only
well.
senior pictures I've ever
Crazy.
seen with a flute in one hand and a wrench in the other.
That's
Were you
true.
under the car in your senior picture?
Like I was just working on something
Yeah, it was just
in the
the
engine thing.
engine you rebuilt, right?
Yeah,
Your
but I
senior
mean,
project.
goodness, like a very
Yes.
talented leader and artist and
Mhm.
home renovator and popcorn
Right.
ceiling remover. Like,
That's
good
right.
heavens. All the, like I said, all these aliases
Right.
of the old Jessica Bowers.
And child grower. You
And
grew
child
3 children in 3 years, right?
Life
In case you
giver.
cannot hear it right now.
That's very
Yes.
impressive.
Yes, well, Jessica and I go back away. Well,
Me too.
And Stephanie as
Yeah.
well. We all knew each other back in our college days. Jessica and I actually traveled together for a summer. Oh boy, the stories that we
What was that? 2011?
So, who knows? Who knows?
10?
I
think it was-
blocked pretty
I
much
think it was
most of that
11.
summer
I think it
out.
was 11.
Yeah.
Or was it
But
10? Or was
no.
it 10? Or was it 11?
No, it was 11.
It was 11?
It was 11.
Okay.
Yeah.
like I said, I don't
You
remember.
you
I
did block
don't
it out.
I
Wow.
don't think back to those
I blocked it out
times.
too because we were broken up during that.
But no, Jessica's a very like determined person. She's just got that determined personality to her. Some might just say stubborn. I think determined sounds better,
Right.
right?
Spinning it in a positive light. I appreciate it.
Sure, we'll spin it that way. No, but thank you, Jessica, for being on and taking the time. We are so excited to talk to you about not being a mechanic, not being a flautist, not being all those things, but something that you currently do, which we're excited to talk about in here, which is community involvement and
Yeah.
community impact. And is that important? I
Yes.
don't know, Jessica. You tell us. We're excited to hear about it. But
Well,
yes,
The
Whoa,
expert.
slow down, Sparky.
The executive.
Yeah. Oh man. But for those listening, can you share a little bit of your background and who you are?
yeah. Well, ironically, I went to the same college as Justin and
What?
Stephanie.
Ironically, I love it. We would agree.
But I got my master's in theater and traveled for a little bit, a couple of years, and then kind of made my way back to good old Alabama, which was not exactly on the top of my list of places to settle down.
Yeah.
But as the Lord would have it, my husband and I came back to where we were from, and I'm really thankful that this is where we ended up. I taught high school English for a year in a Christian school, and began praying for a different opportunity relatively early in that. I was really thankful for that opportunity, but I just knew that was not where I needed to be long term.
Sure, of course.
And so I think this was 2017 now. Someone reached out to me about applying to come on staff for the Decatur Youth Symphony. And so I joined the executive team in 2018 as the assistant executive director. The Decatur Youth Symphony has really great history, and it has a really great reputation in our community, and just solid brand, quality outreach, and just known for making a lot of opportunities available for kids in our community. And so in 2022, I became the executive director. And so it's kind of, it's unique having a background in theater and kind of thinking that my life's trajectory would go in one direction. But I'm using all of those tools from the grad program. Really, the emphasis was grassroots theater. So how do you use the resources at your hand, the people, the finances, the space, the needs of your community? That was actually a big part of my grad project, was trying to use art to encourage, to teach, to motivate, and to help the audience, which is, your art is for someone else, essentially. And so I'm using all of those tools, but just in a music setting. So it's really neat. But that's what I've been doing for the last 2 years now. And, we've got an orchestra program, but we're also doing a lot of free outreach programs for at-risk students in our community, and trying to use music as a medium for giving kids exposure and different opportunities that they might not otherwise have or be able to afford. So that's what I'm currently doing in between the home renovations and, changing diapers and refereeing fights and stuff. So.
Seriously.
So
you're kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Is what
kind
I
of.
Yeah.
Indicator anyways. No.
Right.
No, not really.
And you were assistant, but now you are the executive director of it. Wow. That's amazing. So impressive. Obviously you are involved in community. Like, this is what you are passionate about.
Well, even defining community.
But so how would you define community? We're not just talking about, the people we choose to have our community, but the community we're living in. How would you define it?
You could define it solely based off of geography, but I think really it is it is the place that you are choosing to essentially establish roots of who you are.
Yeah.
And establish the roots of, you know, I think of the community as this is what I'm inviting in to shape my children and to shape my family too. And it is, yeah, it's the people too that we choose to be with, those relationships that we're choosing to facilitate, but it's also it is the street that I live on. It is the neighbors that I'm next to and around that hear my kids playing in the yard or see us living our lives. But it is also the people at the park down the road. It's the, the different opportunities and community events happening. It really is, I view it as this is where I've chosen to really establish my family, and this is what I'm inviting in to shape who we are.
Yeah. No, that's so good. Well, I mean, even from we go through something called the wheel of wellness, and it's like 8 different categories of like, different areas to kind of ask yourself, hey, am I thriving in this area? So like, emotional wellness, physical, spiritual, social, all these things. And one of the ones that I think gets overlooked the most is actually environmental. And again, when people hear environmental, it's like, oh, picking up trash, everything like that. And it's like, sure, that could be part of it. But really the big idea of environmental is like where you, like you said, geographically live. Like, am I actively trying to make the place that I am better? And that's not even just the landscape of that, which again, that's important too. But really it's like, am I trying to make, exactly like you said, my the neighbors down the road, my township, like just the area that I'm growing up, not only for myself, but for my children, for if someone doesn't have children, like the next generation of people, just that idea of, am I leaving this area better because of my presence there? That element. Because again, the term community, I think it's thrown on a lot and has a lot of impact and power in different things, whether it be, your church community or your, friends or whatever it may be. But again, that's kind of the big idea of what we're focusing on today in the podcast, is this bigger concept of community within that environmental perspective of, like you said, this is geographically where I am. This is my city. This is my town. This is my area. I want to leave a positive impact and progression in a positive way. And so like, even expounding on that a little bit more, and this again is probably a dumb question, so, forgive me, but why is that even important? Like, why is that, what's the importance of actually being involved in your community and trying to improve it? I mean, wouldn't it be better just to like hunker down in your own house and be like, this is,
Well, you know what? And that's exactly what happened through COVID. And as much as I was so tired of talking about COVID when it was actually a thing, but it really is important to, I think, evaluate and really even confront some of the habits that were formed through that time, because that's exactly what people were doing. And so community was just like non-existent in so many ways, really essentially however you would have defined community, it was not happening.
Yeah.
And so coming out of that and really having to retrain family units and retrain communities on how to come together in different ways is it is like an uphill battle, it feels like, especially working in a community organization, to get people to participate in whatever capacity you need is really challenging, because I think for so long there was that mindset of hunkering down and isolating and focusing on just your household, whatever that may have looked like. And I think communities really suffered as a result. So changing that mindset of, it's just retraining your values and reestablishing your values of, okay, I'm a stay-at-home / also working mom of 3 little kids. It takes work for my husband and I to just get these kids out the door with shoes and clothes on, and
oh yeah,
and perhaps some diapers to change in an emergency, and get them in the car and make it to where we've got to go. It takes so much work. And almost like every time you're like, oh, it would be so much easier to stay home. It would be so much easier to stay home. But you'd miss the opportunities, the value of connecting with other people who also made the choice to do something rather than just what was easy or convenient.
Yeah.
So I don't really remember where I was going with that, but kind of retraining those tendencies.
Yeah.
So there's some value in actually investing in your community, even if it's just through participating in different opportunities. You may not feel like you have the capacity to volunteer or to lead something or to whatever, bear the burden of some sort of leadership. That's totally fine. Right. Because those people who are leading or initiating, they need people to participate to make something successful. So even your presence and even your participation is going to have a positive impact.
For sure.
So it's not, I don't know, sometimes I'm guilty of this, just thinking, I've got to be doing something. I've got to make something happen. And, yes, as a leader, I do need to be doing something. But it's also like, hey, there's an event at the library. It takes a lot of work, but it would be good to get my kids there. It would be good for them to be exposed to that environment, other kids interacting and even just learning how to communicate that way. Let's get them down to the museum for whatever. It's going to take some work, but it's worth it. Even just getting them out to the park or, running around.
Yeah,
and it's just,
for sure.
It's so beneficial for you as a person and for little people that you're trying to nurture. But when you start to participate more, then you start to observe more. You start to recognize needs. You start to see gaps. And you start to think, this other option or something else could really serve these kids. Or I know it would really benefit my kids. So if it would help mine, it's probably going to help some other kids too.
Yeah,
that's good.
Sure.
So the more you get out, the more invested you become in your community and the more you want to help meet needs.
Yeah.
And that's how the youth symphony began.
Oh, cool.
There were some leaders in the community, just businessmen and women, some educators. They said, we don't have any sort of community-based, total access, equal opportunity, music arts resources for our kids. There's nothing outside of the schools.
Oh.
And the schools, that's, hit or miss if it's going to be what kind of opportunities are going to be available to kids in the schools because it's not equal in every school. So they said 20 years ago, they said we need a violin program. So we're going to teach violin to all of the third graders in the Decatur City schools for free. We're going to teach it to them.
Wow.
And after a couple of years of teaching violin, they had all these string players and like, well, we need somewhere for these kids, like the next step for these kids. So they started an orchestra and that captured the homeschoolers and it captured the musically inclined kids that wanted to learn more and be exposed to different opportunities.
Yeah.
And 20 years later, we went from a handful of 12 string players to 5 different orchestras, percussion programs, and outreach string programs in the schools. And we're reaching over 2,000 students a year.
Amazing.
Wow.
So it really just started with people who said, there's a gap here.
Yeah.
There's a need here in my community. I'm going to start some conversations with some other people and try to build relationships to see if we can make something happen. So I think that that's one of the greatest values to come out of just participating in your community
Yeah.
is you may not be the person to start something, but you could be a support person.
Mm-hmm.
You could be someone encouraging someone else to make it happen.
For sure.
You know, there's no limitation on the value that your participation can bring to somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, you talked about some obstacles, of course, being parents of young kids, but they won't always be young, so I hear. Like, so,
that's what they tell us.
And someday they'll put shoes on by themselves. But what are some other obstacles that you've heard of as you're in the community, as you're talking to people, that keep people from being more involved or even just participating, you know, let alone leading or volunteering?
You know, it's important to communicate clearly, even about the opportunities. And that's something that I've actually seen Decatur do better and better. Even in the last 7 years that I've been working with the Youth Symphony, they've really tried to make opportunities as available and communicated across as many different platforms as possible.
Yeah.
So even like not being connected to those avenues of communication, you know, you'll be out of the loop essentially.
Wow.
So that's important. But then I think finances, that can be an obstacle.
Yeah.
And you know, also time. You're going to choose the things that you think are valuable to spend your time on.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be the same for every person. So it's really just a matter of then on like my end, thinking through things in terms of what I offer to the community.
Yeah.
You know, I don't expect every single kid to be some invested musician. You know, I don't expect every single kid to go on to study music in some capacity, or I don't even expect every kid to be that great. You know, not everyone's cut out to play the violin, and that's okay. But if I can take the approach of let's cast a really wide net at a younger age, and let's communicate in as many different avenues as possible, then, you know, we're gonna reach a lot more, and we're gonna reach more kids that might not be able to participate otherwise. So I think just not being aware of opportunities is a big obstacle, and then just, you know, pick and choose what you can and can't do. And it's okay if you can't do very much. That's okay.
Yeah. And being realistic too of like seasons as well. Like there are certain seasons in life where you're not going to be able to be a leader or start something, but like you said, maybe it's just a participation season when it's, again, especially when the kids are young and things like that. And then as the season changes, as maybe you do get more free time or closer to retirement, whatever it may be, maybe there is more opportunity to invest financially, time, energy, whatever it may be. So, but I think at least exactly like you said, like figuring out your values and just being aware, like having awareness of looking for, man, is there a gap that I can fill? Like you were saying before. You were also talking about like specifically with the history of the orchestra, which is so cool. I mean, what'd you say, like 2,000 students? That's amazing. Crazy. That is so cool. Can you talk a little bit more about like the positive impacts that you've seen in being involved with that and seeing how the orchestra has grown and how that's able to benefit and help the community and the kids in the community and just, you know, people's willingness to be involved and how that has had a positive impact?
Yeah. So I have a little bit of a unique perspective, I guess, because I was a homeschool student and I didn't have anywhere to play my flute, to, you know, toot my flute. So when the Decatur Youth Symphony opened up the orchestra to brass and winds back in good old 2004, I was just like, hallelujah. And so I joined. I was one of the first flute players to jump in.
Oh, it's special.
Yeah. And so as a participant, having the opportunity to play music with other musicians, other just students trying to learn what they're doing and how to figure out like what are the next steps in life, but also to just have fun together playing music. That really gave me a lot of confidence to do more with the arts in college and then even after college. So, you know, and I wasn't even coming from like it wasn't an outreach kind of opportunity in terms of a free program. I signed up, paid my fee, and I participated. And it really was a positive impact on even just my confidence and thought process for the future. So that the orchestra kind of grew and it moved beyond just a place for students to come and play. You know, I kind of think of it in two ways. We invite kids to come. We have different opportunities where we are inviting students to participate, but then we also go out and take the opportunities to where the kids are. And a big aspect of that is our percussion program. And that's just after school drumming. And so the percussion director literally loads drums up into his it's not a Jeep, but it's a like a 4Runner or something full of drums, and he'll just take them to community centers or in the middle of lower income housing centers, unloads the drums and just starts drumming. And kids are just, I mean, they'll just come in off the streets. They'll just come from whatever they're doing and they'll just jam out with him for the afternoon. And he does that every week. You know, he's in different boys and girls clubs and other youth services programs. But he's working with 250 kids every week just in those things.
Just on drums.
And just drumming. And it's connecting kids through rhythm when, you know, there might be potential for other barriers, whether it's background or, you know, socioeconomic barriers or educational barriers. He works with students with special needs.
That's cool.
And even, I mean, he works with students that are paraplegic, completely bound to wheelchair, and he absolutely loves what he does, and he's phenomenal at it. But he'll talk about it, you know, even just tapping rhythms for students on their wheelchairs. They can feel that in their body, and that sense of rhythm, even though they physically may not be able to participate the same way, that rhythm, that sensory experience connects them to the other kids in the class. And so it's really neat to see how that has expanded to really reach anyone. Our whole mission is just to simply transform lives through music. And that's going to reach, I don't care what background you come from.
That's right.
I do care.
Yeah, we get you.
You know, in one sense,
doesn't care, people.
It doesn't matter what your home situation is. That doesn't exclude you from being able to participate, and it doesn't exclude you from being able to reap the benefits of being involved. Even if it's just, hey, for an hour a week, I got to just drum it all out and got to be with friends, and I got to learn from a guy that I know cares about me. That's enough. You know, even if that's all a kid walks away with.
Absolutely.
We will have done our job well. So
that's so cool.
I love it.
That's so cool. And especially like within the mission statement, I think that's exactly it. It's like transforming lives through music. Because, you know, like you were saying before, it's not about like, all right, we're going to create like the next Beethoven. We're going to create the next like amazing musician.
Lindsay Sterling's. I'm trying to say that. Or
but I mean that may be a product of that, and that may be great if like one of the students goes on to do that. But music is just the vehicle in which to all the things that you're saying in transforming lives, connecting them to other people, giving them, you know, like letting them know and giving them authority figures who care about them and want to see them succeed, and, you know, being able to give opportunities to just talk about life and decisions and choices and, you know, all of those things that music is the vehicle in order to accomplish that. That's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I think that's hard. I mean, I grew up musically as well. I think we did something in high school together at our college.
You were in the Decatur?
No, we met in South Carolina. I think we've known each other since high
different
school.
Fine arts competitions.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we have. I forgot about that. But
Stephanie plays the violin for those who may not know. I think we brought it up before.
Yeah.
Stephanie's a very
sang.
accomplished violinist.
My minor was voice. But anyway.
Pavarotti?
No, not accomplished. Okay. So, but what I was going to say is that I think I was raised in Connecticut right outside of New York City. So there was just a lot of like Juilliard and everybody like really, I mean, the youth symphonies I was in, I hope this doesn't sound bad, but I started playing violin when I was 9, which you started playing when you were 4. Like that was the age you started. I was a tall 9-year-old.
You started at 9. Why did you even bother?
I know. Like what was that? What even was the point? Well, Catherine, my older sister, did great. So, I mean, I would stand up and play my Suzuki Book 1, and I kid you not, every other kid standing there with me came up to like my hip bone. Like they were all tiny 4-year-olds. And I always felt so like out of place. Obviously, I was one of the only white people in the whole room. And it was just very out of place. And it felt like, oh, if I don't make it, then that's the goal. But I think now as I'm growing, you know, as I'm a grown up now, I see the importance of that music, you know, the discipline, the practice, the focus, the, you know, blending, you know, orchestra, the following instructions, things like that. And you said at the very beginning of the interview how you utilize so much of what you learned through your degrees and things like that in this role you're in now, which makes sense. We were in a musical together in college, and you know, public speaking, you did a lot of that and stuff. I kind of want to ask, like, what's your elevator pitch, or like what do you tell people is like the utmost importance, the thing that you really want people to understand of the value of community involvement? I mean, I want to say not specifically, you know, what you do in love, but just in the broader picture. But maybe we could start in the more focus.
Like what do people not know about that you would want them to know? You know.
Yeah, I think it's I know. Yeah.
All right, let's go.
I think it's the same thing. You know, how I would, what I would say to somebody specifically about Decatur Youth Symphony, I think I would say as well to someone just interested in engaging in their community more. And I would probably, if I had to, you know, create an elevator pitch in that regard, but I would really encourage them to allow yourself to be changed as you are investing in and hoping to, this will be my part for the youth symphony, transform other people's lives. I think there's in any sort of relationship, there is the willingness to invite someone else in. There has to be. Otherwise, there's really no grounds for a relationship.
Sure.
And your community is a relationship. It's an evolving relationship. And the more you are willing to invite that community in, the more you're aware of, ooh, that's not so great. That's not a really great aspect of my community. I want to see that change. The more you're invested in transforming other people's lives, and the more your own life will change as a result. You know, there's so much to nitpick about our culture right now. And it would be so easy to, like what we talked about earlier, just hunker down and stay home.
Yeah.
It's just all going to the crapper anyways, you know. And that's
Wow, we're
just
getting old.
not no, right?
No, Jessica's always talked like that. like a 90-year-old man from the 50s. Gosh darn it.
But no.
No, but you're right. Like it can be very easy to just see all the problems.
Yeah. But man, there's people that are worth reaching. There's people that are worth sitting down and having a conversation with. There's kids that are worth teaching, you know? And I mean, goodness, I could just share story after story after story.
Yeah.
But you get those stories by participating. I just can't stress that enough for myself or for anyone. Just choose one thing. Just choose something to participate in, even if it's a one-time opportunity. It doesn't have to be some sort of year-long, you know, commitment.
Sure.
But you know, there's kids out there that just need people to love on them.
Yeah.
So, and it's really a great opportunity to be able to do that through my job.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not a Christian organization, but it is connected to, and what I do is rooted in my faith.
Yeah.
And it's rooted in how I know Christ sees me and how I know Christ loves me.
Beautiful.
And so I can't not, you know, lead out of that. I can't, there's just no way not to.
Right.
There's no way not to look at little kids walking around with these tiny violins and not just, you know.
Yeah. But that's so cool that, and again, like specifically with that program and other programs as well, other community outreaches and programs, the importance of investing in youth and investing in kids, just because that is such a informative stage in your life. And so often, like, man, the traumas that adults carry years and years down the road, a lot of that stems from unresolved things that happened to them in their childhood or when they were young, or you know, when you're in that, again, very vulnerable may not be the right word, but very, you know, you're very malleable, impressionable. That's it. And that's so cool and so amazing that, you know, again, specifically for the program that you guys are doing and other programs as well that are really investing in kids and trying to offer some physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, social, you know, wellness, and putting them on a path toward success. I mean, for lack of a better word, whatever that looks like for them in their life. But and again, like, you know, you're talking about your faith. I think that was from my understanding of when I read like the Gospels and read the Bible and Jesus, like that was one of his things that he was so passionate about, was like the kids, the children, you know, to the point where, you know, there's the story of, you know, even his like followers, disciples were kind of like, all right, you know, get the little, send the little kids away. They're kind of in the way. They're bothering, you know, they're kind of hindering what's going on here. And Jesus shuts them down. And it's like, nope, do not stop those kids from coming to me, because their attitude and their mindset and their willingness to listen and hear is huge and tremendous. And, you know, obviously that's, as parents too, you feel that weight too. But let me ask you this, like, and you honestly have already talked about this in so many ways. And I think it's amazing. Even just the tip of participation, like that's a low hanging fruit that people can do. But, you know, what advice would you give to someone who, like, they do want to be involved in their community. They do want to make a difference. I don't think for a lot of people, it's not ambivalence or anger towards like, I don't want to help my community. I think if you talk to 99.9% of people are going to be like, yes, I do want my community to be better.
Yeah.
But where do I start? Where do I start in giving back to my community and understanding what they need and how I can be involved? And I don't know, what advice would you give to someone who's kind of starting that journey?
I probably would first just ask them, what do they love? What are they passionate about? How do you like to pass your time? What are hobbies that you personally enjoy? Because if there's some way that you can connect something that you personally enjoy with using that as a means of helping someone else, then that's like a win-win because you're getting fulfilled, but you're also helping to share that with someone else. So it's kind of shifting your mindset from personal pursuits to how do I use those personal enjoyments or passions then for the betterment of other people.
That's good.
And I think so shifting that kind of, we're just in such a very individualistic society. So shifting that to, I'm not just going to only kind of live in my own little world, but what are some things that I enjoy that I can share with someone else? And then utilizing things like, I could probably guarantee you have some sort of volunteer center in your local community or some sort of organization like that, or like a United Way kind of nonprofit organization that is specifically there to connect to other nonprofits or charities or other local initiatives. So I would first evaluate your personal passions or hobbies, and then check with things like a volunteer center to see what are the needs. Okay, is there something that I can plug into that follows along things that I'm comfortable with or passionate about, and go to it. That would be where I would start.
That's really good.
And just to add to that, a lot of companies, my company encourages volunteer hours, or encourages to get involved in things. So even asking your direct report or manager, like, hey, does our company have funds to help support this?
That's
or
a good point.
Like one of our team members was really passionate about a kids it was like a morning kids activity thing. I don't know, but they brought food. They brought breakfast, like a bunch of our team over the holidays. And so like there's also opportunities through your work, like I know Chick-fil-A, a lot of our friends are there. They have vacation time specifically for nonprofit work. So definitely like utilize that kind of benefit from your financial. And then of course it's a write-off for
I think it goes back to
your own business,
Jessica, where you were saying about creating win-wins. And because obviously like the companies do that for a reason. They want people, they want to encourage people to give back to their community, to be involved in their community. And people want, people want a better community. It's just, are you willing to put in the work to make your community better? Because it does take work. It does take intentionality for it to get better. I mean, things just left to themselves generally do not get better. They tend to go the opposite direction. And so,
yeah.
But I loved what you said about looking for opportunities when you're being served. Maybe it's a season where it's just like, okay, I need this program. My kids need this program. But keeping your eyes open to like the gap or the opportunity, not just what can my country do for me, but what can I do for my country, kind of thing. But,
well, and I mean, how many times have we as participants gone to something, or not as necessarily participants, but we've put on, we've put work into something, even if it's as simple as I'm going to actually clean my home and have people over into my home,
we can't identify with that.
Small group or a meal or whatever. And, it's not perfect, of course, but people were welcomed and enjoyed fellowship, maybe had good food if food was part of it, and then walked away encouraged, or had smiles on their faces or whatever. And you could take that and apply it to whatever, even out in the community. How many times have we done something and we saw our work directly helped, impacted, encouraged someone else?
That's good.
That makes you feel good, you know?
Yeah.
So even if it is just getting out and just participating and then saying, hey, thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
That's going to go a long way. That's going to be huge for whoever, initiated.
Yeah.
Even just acknowledging the work and thanking them. That's going to change somebody's life right there.
Yeah. Yeah. We love to end our podcast. I can't believe this went really fast, but learned so much, taking so much to heart. But we like to end our podcast by asking our guests, what does intentionally thriving mean to them? So, Jessica, what does it mean to intentionally thrive in your life?
For right now, even though we've focused a little bit more, I guess, on my work side of life, I think for me, intentionally thriving is really just nurturing my kids. I mean, that is the kingdom work right there.
Yeah.
Even the really tough days, like at the end of the day, getting them, settled in bed, reading with them, praying with them at night. And it's just, man, these kids, that's what it's about. Like this family right here.
Yeah.
That's thriving to me.
Yeah.
Like, my job is part-time and it gets part-time Jessica.
Good.
But my family is full-time. Like that's the important, that's it,
Yeah.
And so, I think thriving to me is just loving God and loving my family. And if at the end of the day, if I can say, today we love Jesus and we loved each other, that's a thriving day to me. It may not have been perfect along the way, but that's thriving to me.
I love it.